Okay, so one of the unique opportunities or perspectives that you get as a poker coach is you get to see all the various trends and themes that exist in the game from year to year. And when you do this, you start to see certain mistakes. And listen, players are making mistakes all the time. I'm not talking about calling with a, small pair without getting odds or donk betting or any sort of tactical mistake. I'm talking about larger, bigger themes, systemic mistakes that arise when learning to play poker. For 2016, I personally believe that the biggest mistake made by players is what I call cut and pasting, which is really an interesting mistake in process formation. And you can go really deep with this if you want to have discussions about learning theory and, a bunch of areas of psychology. But basically, it's when a player cuts and pastes language from another player's thought process into their own. For example, let's take the term bet for value. You know how many times I have heard players say that word as an instant justification for any action they take at the table? It's almost like if you say bet for value, it's going to magically make any action at the table correct. And of course, if you're playing a really defined range, most of the time you're going to be betting for value, but there are so many spots where a player shouldn't be betting for value because all the hands that call them beat them, or because checking in a specific spot might be the only way you're actually going to get more value out of your opponent. Another example of cut and pasting is the overuse of the term balancing, which just seems to be everywhere this year. Balancing your range means taking the same actions with different categories of hands so you aren't so easy to play against. I have heard players with practically no bankroll who play live poker with players who are really bad and not that aware say that they need to balance their range and use that as a justification for just taking really horrible lines at the table. They hear a really good player use the term balance as a justification for playing a marginal hand a certain way, so they try to balance. But they don't have a deeper argument or understanding of what, why, or when they actually need to balance. And let's not even bring up, the cut and pasting of the term GTO. I'm going to save that for an entirely different video. Now, cut and pasting has always been a problem, but there seems to be this really crazy influx of this, and I think I know why. See, the access to poker content is at an unprecedented level. You can hear really exceptional players discuss their thought process on Twitch. You have the Global Poker League. You have the rise of poker vloggers who are recording their actual games at the table and posting reviews of them. There are a lot of people talking about the game, and there is a lot of people eager to learn. And you might be saying, Blake, so what? What's the big deal if someone uses language they don't understand sometimes? Isn't that how you learn? And yes and no. See, the problem with cut and pasting a process is you aren't implementing the entire process. For example, if a player says, I'm going to call here, you aren't seeing the multiple reasons why that player is comfortable calling in that specific spot. Modeling is a great way to learn a lot of things in life, and it's still very valuable in poker. But a lot of people are modeling their language on a very small portion of a larger thought process. It's like if I only, watched your feet moving when learning to drive a car, there would be a lot of the questions that I would be fundamentally missing because I wouldn't see your upward hand, your movement, all that stuff. Cut and pasting a part of a thought process is going to mask the fact that you don't have an understanding of the elements that allow you to use that thought process. And unless you were talking to someone pretty sharp, they aren't going to realize that you're making mistakes. You see these terms and you automatically assume players know what they're talking about. You know how many times I've read a hand history where a player uses complicated language and then I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell? And I go back and I see all the problems and flaws in logic. And I get it because, using the cool language is such an artificial ego boost. Players love to prove they know how to play poker, and it's understandable. You want to feel like we're part of the in crowd. It's an aspect of being human, and it's understandable. But there's also a ton of value in being humble and open enough to say, I have absolutely no idea what this guy is saying. A lot of value comes from trying to get at the core of why a player is taking a specific action or why they are using specific language. The reason you want to ask why a player is using that justification is if you do, you start to prod into the larger aspect of that player's thought process. Please check your thoughts in 2017. Stop being so obsessed with using all the damn buzzwords in poker. Just make sure you have reasons behind what you are doing and make sure you can defend those reasons. To be honest, saying that you were bored and just wanted to mix things up and raise is much better than saying you were just trying to balance. Also, if you think this is a bigger problem in your game, you can do what I call a poker thought process audit, something I'm teaching in my new completely free poker goal setting framework. Links below. Sign up right now, and I'll teach you the process for how to audit your game and establish where you're at and create goals that you can actually reach. Something really important in the new year. Link below. Any questions, comments, concerns, post in the discussion section.